Not live. Hello, and welcome to The Week Unspun, a weekly live look at the world through the eyes of PR professionals from around the world. Now, my name is Farzana Baduel, and I am sitting in London.
And I'm David Gallagher, also sitting in London, about 2.7 miles away from Farzana.
And I'm Doug Downs, somewhere in Canada's Rocky Mountains, just freshly back from London. Cheers to you both. It's good to be back with my mug on screen.
It was great to have you in London, Doug. Now, first of all, I want to say a huge thank you. We missed Doug last week, but what we did instead is we had a mailbox episode where we just took contributions from our incredible community of PRs who are sharing their insight, and we added our sort of 2 pennies. And the feedback's been marvelous, and we always want this conversation to be all of us and to be super inclusive. So please do chime into the comments as and when you wish to do so. Now, here's what's going to be on today. I would like to, first of all, talk a little bit about the Mamdani effect.
Yeah.
He's a surprise candidate in the New York mayoral race, and I'd love to talk about his comms approach. And we've also got loads of questions and comments from the Omnicom IPG merger, and David's got some opinions there, and because he was kind of a big cheese at Omnicom. And here in the UK, we have completed our first ever contested election since 2021. And it's been a long while for the presidency for the Chartered Institute of Public Relations. And we can touch on the value of communities like this and a crafty tactic we're going to explore by a provincial government in Canada to win favour in the midst of a teacher's strike. And it's something a little bit about the colour of money.
It's juicy.
It's juicy. But before, I wanted to just flag up something that I saw about Channel 4. It was extraordinary. I was just browsing through my sort of Instagram, and all of a sudden I saw this, an AI-generated newsreader. The UK's Channel 4 aired its first AI TV newsletter, and viewers had no idea. I mean, extraordinary. For those who haven't seen it, go and have a look and see how convincing it is. And bear in mind that we are very much in our infancy of sort of AI. And so this gives you a flavor of what's to come. Now, can I go first in terms of my story? I've been
do they have AI-generated viewers? Any AI-generated avatars watching the news on BBC?
Well, probably that will be next, because the advertisers are going to want to show that that there's enough of an audience for them. Now,
but wait, Farzana, just was that undisclosed? The Channel 4 didn't say.
Well, you know what? They kind of like. Sorry, Doug, you were going to say.
I was going to say my understanding is they didn't disclose it at first and then immediately did.
Okay.
So kept it a secret. Nobody noticed, and then said, "Hey, that was AI."
Okay. That's wild. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off beat there. I was just curious.
Okay. So first story, I have been watching Mamdani for a very, very long time. He burst into my sort of TikTok world, and then Instagram, and then sort of trad media. Absolutely extraordinary how he's come out of nowhere, fresh-faced, and also just seems to be able to resonate with a wide, diverse range of audiences. And that's quite extraordinary, because obviously New York is a hyper-diverse city. And, there you have always exuding that sort of positivity, that smile. And I think, he's just been able to just navigate diverse communities in a way that other candidates have struggled. Now, we've discussed before the effects that politicians have on shaping communications. Trump in the United States, a Starmer in the UK, Justin Trudeau in Canada, and now we're obviously hearing about Zorhan Mamdani, who's running for mayor in New York City. Now, what do you guys know about him? And tell me what your thoughts are about him with a comms lens. Is he a great communicator? What's his magic sauce? Why is he polling so high?
He crushed the debates. If you watch the recent debates, he crushed the debates. A terrific speaker. Obviously, self-identifies as leaning well off to the left-hand side, not moderate. But he's a big idea guy, David. He gives these big ideas, even if he can't deliver them. Lots of personality, lots of undeliverable big ideas. He's taken a page right out of the Republican handbook, and it's working for him.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't know him that well. As some of you may know, I'm a pretty active, vocal Democrat and active politically, but I'm not a New York voter. And we could do a whole show on how voting works. I'm actually a Virginia voter, but I know a lot of New Yorkers, and their opinions are kind of split on them. But I wanted to get a view from someone who, if he isn't a New York voter, he understands the process there. So Ellie Jacobs, good friend, very solid communications advisor. He runs a company called Purposeful Advisors in New Jersey. If you're not familiar with that, it's just on the other side of the river from New York. And I wanted his take. So I'm going to paraphrase and quote probably in equal measure, and hopefully he'll say I got his point of view right. This is a direct quote. He says, "Zorhan is a force of nature." That's a direct quote. He did literally go from a fringe candidate to front runner in what's largely seen to be a Democratic contest. There is a Republican challenger. He's running against Cuomo, who crashed out of the party due to a scandal, is running as an independent. But this is essentially a center to center left race. We could geek out, and we did geek out over the politics of this, the structure of the electorate, the way that Mamdani restructured the voting rolls by bringing in thousands and thousands of new voters. We were talking about, if you think about all of the young 30-something people who moved to Manhattan, probably registered somewhere else, he managed through door knocking to get them registered. So he changed the entire electorate, and that's how he won the Democratic primary. From a and we could geek out on that all day. From a comms perspective, these are the things that Ellie says he thinks worked, and I think I agree with all these. One, he's got happy warrior vibes. Any image you see, he's got a big, broad smile. He's a positive guy. In this environment, I think that really cuts through, and it supports him on his truly breakout superpower, which is social media. And he is using social, unlike just about anybody other than maybe Trump in his way. You see the California governor Newsom using it kind of to counter Trump. Mamdani's doing it in his own way, in a very positive way. There's a great clip in which he's cycling across the boroughs of Manhattan. Somebody yells at him, "You're a communist," and he goes, "Oh, I think it's pronounced cyclist." I just think he's always on. But to your point, Doug, he appeals to voters at core of human emotional levels. So when he talks about having a state-run or a city-run free grocery, reduced price grocery store in every borough, that's probably not that feasible. He's speaking in very tangible ways to affordability in a very direct, memorable way. So some people get kind of caught up on how feasible the ideas are. From a comms point of view, he's saying things that are easy to remember, address kind of a core human need, and they're real. So I don't know, how he's going to do in the election. He's running a few points ahead. I did ask Ellie, is he emblematic? Can other Democrats take a lesson from him and apply it in other parts of the country? And he doesn't think so. He thinks New York's fairly unique and special. Most New Yorkers do, and he's not sure that this approach will work elsewhere. I'm not so sure, but you might have a different thought on that, Doug.
There's a neat article in Politico noting that federally, Democrats are starting to do everything they can to distance themselves from him because he's not moderate. And the only path to success for the federal Dems is to become more moderate. And it's the Republicans who are rubbing their hands together, preparing their messaging and their narratives, just waiting for him to get elected, which looks like it's going to happen.
Yeah, I hear that. And again, not to get into the politics of it, I think Ellie's point is that there are certain types of politicians that put performance over productivity. I think those are literally his words, and he doesn't know how viable that is. And I'm not arguing with Ellie on that. I do think that in an attention economy, performance is a lot, and you don't get to be productive until you get elected. So I think his approach is there are elements of it that I think a lot of people could learn from. But thanks for asking, Farzana. I think it's an interesting story.
Could I also add one point? What's quite interesting about him? He's got this very incredible mixed heritage. So Indian heritage. Mother is a very famous Indian sort of film guru, and the mother is Hindu, the father is Muslim, Ugandan, Indians. And so what's really interesting about them is that he has had to navigate all these different cultures, African, American, sort of different faiths, Hindu and Muslim. And I think in a funny sort of way, that became his superpower, because actually when you navigate cultures from a very young age, you actually learn how to connect with people from different audiences. So I wonder if that is something, that really plays into superpower. His middle name is also Kwame, and was chosen after the first Ghanaian prime minister. And again, quite unusual, because when you have the Indian diaspora living in Africa, it's not always so common that they then take the African names as well. So that tells you a lot about his parents and how they sort of leaned into different cultures as well. So I think his parents and they're sort of assets in the way that he has been brought up. So I think that's quite interesting. The mother also very famous filmmaker, and if you look into, her name is Mira Nair, if you look into her sort of work, you'll see where he's got that ability to storytell. So that inclusivity, that diversity, that storytelling has all been honed into someone who is culturally literate in a way that his contenders just aren't.
And that's where CEOs are moving too, right? More personality, more style, more charisma. Mamdani is a big effect. And speaking of big effects, there's another big story in the agency world right now. It's the merger between giant holding companies, Omnicom and IPG. Between them, they own some of the best known agency brands in the world: Weber, Fleischman Hillard, Ketchum, among others. Only thing in the way now of the approval of this merger is the European Commission. That's probably going to happen mid-November, maybe late November. So this seems a fait accompli. Combined revenue of the two companies will be $25.6 billion. David, I want to go to you first. You spent a lot of time on the Omnicom side, so inquiring minds want to know, what can we expect? The good, the bad, and maybe a little bit of the ugly.
Yeah, I do have a point of view, and these are all personal opinions. Nobody should take this as investment advice, but yeah, it is technically an acquisition. I was corrected. I tried to ask a few people who are in the inside, and it is technically an acquisition, or it has mostly features of an acquisition, with Omnicom being the acquiring party. In my day job, I talk to a lot of people on the PR agency side and on the client side. And it's always this question, especially in the last few weeks, has been the number one question, partly from a gossip point of view, but also just genuine curiosity. It is big news in the PR world. But I think there's a little bit of context we need, and then I'll drill into a couple of maybe more relevant points. It's big in PR because, as you said, these are agencies like Ketchum, Fleischman Hillard, Porter Novelli, Portland, Golan. These are well-known agencies. 3 of those are in the top 10 worldwide. So it's big news. Yeah. But really, these are small agencies compared to the much larger advertising agencies that are in the group. So this whole merger is not about the PR agencies, as important as we want to be. It's really about data and technology. It's been moving in this direction for a while. For Omnicom to be competitive with Publicis and WPP, it really needs to up its size and capability when it comes to data and technology. Some people might argue with me on that, but I think that's what this is about. In no way will this make Omnicom, the new Omnicom, competitive with a Meta or an Alphabet when it comes to total advertising revenue. But it will make them competitive with WPP and others. So that's really what this was about. I'll just go on really quickly. I do think there are implications for agencies. Right now, all parties are saying the agency brands will stay the way they are. People on the inside see that as not likely to be viable in the long run. I mean, there are a lot of brands, and it's kind of hard to make a case for keeping all of them. My guess is that if it doesn't happen immediately, it will quickly move towards a consolidated, maybe around 2 different groups of PR companies, and eventually they'll probably move to a very small number of agencies, maybe 1. Now, the reason they're saying they're not going to do that is because they want to preserve culture and they want to preserve client relationships. But they've already moved back office functions into a single unit. And anybody who's run an agency of any size knows that a lot of your culture is driven on your HR function and your financial management. So I don't see that as being something viable. Clients, I think, are pretty resilient about these things. I've spoken to a lot of agencies who think that maybe there'll be some fallout. that there'll be some confusion. They won't get the kind of service that they want, so they'll go to another group of agencies to serve them. I haven't found that to be the case necessarily. I think clients will usually use this to renegotiate payment terms, renegotiate rates, as long as they can be assured that their core teams will be intact. I don't know that there'll be fallout. Having said that, in the mergers I've been involved with, the merged entities are often smaller than the combined entities that went into the merger, and it takes them a while to recover. So that money has to go somewhere, and it could land with other agencies. I think it will land with other big agencies, not small agencies. And I guess the last thing I want to say, and maybe most importantly, and I want to be sensitive about this because jobs are going to change. There's no doubt about it. People we know, people probably maybe listening to this show, their jobs are going to change. A few are going to get bigger, better jobs, and congratulations to them. Some are going to get scooped up by competitors. Some will leave and start new agencies. And some maybe will become independent consultants. So there's going to be a lot of uncertainty here. For me, the opportunity, if I were a competitor, is probably less about trying to scoop up disenchanted clients. That might happen, you'll get lucky, but it's more finding new talent, either to fill in or add to what you didn't have before, because there's going to be some really good people out there. So sorry, that's kind of a long riff, but I think there'll be a period of uncertainty. I don't think there'll be a whole lot of client churn. Maybe I'll be surprised. But there will be some good people out there, and wishing them well. It'll be a challenging period maybe for a while, but there's going to be a new raft of startups and new talent out there to be aware of.
Did you read the op-ed by the CEO of Stagwell, Mark Penn? He's not in favor of it. He had some criticism. Yeah,
it's not a surprise. He would love to be in a position where he's combining his group with another group to form a $25 billion group. So it feels a little bit sour grapes, but he makes a good point. Size isn't everything, and especially on the PR side of this, it's not the only or even necessarily the primary metric of quality. So I think it's good. And whenever you have a transaction like this, it's good for people to poke holes in it. But I don't know that anything he's raised is really going to cast a shadow over the potential success or the challenges associated with it.
Okay, story 3. This is happening right in my backyard. I live in Alberta, Western Canada. So the province is about 4 million people. We have a teacher's strike that's going on right now. And you already know the issues. The issues are pay and class sizes, right? It's uniform probably throughout the world. And on pay, I would say the government and the teachers union are probably pretty close. They clash over that publicly, but it's not really what they're fighting over. It's class sizes. And the government likes to put out a number. There's X number of teachers. There's X number of students. That's easy division. 1 to 20, right? Or 20 to 1. So one teacher per 20 students. And you can get into all kinds of ways you dissect that. That's not what this story is about. The government's decided to pay parents whose children are at home now $30 a month, $30 a month as a stipend to help them get through this difficult time. And that's what's raised the ire of a few folks. My good friend, the president of the Canadian Public Relations Society Calgary chapter, Lisa Rushka, has left us a video message. So if we could, David O., please roll that and just to get her question to the group.
Communications in Calgary, Alberta. The issue on my mind this week is the Alberta teachers' strike. The strike has sparked a powerful public reaction, and now the government's decision to pay families with children under 12 during school closures adds an additional layer of complexity. On the surface, it looks like support for parents, but strategically, it's also a PR move that shifts focus away from teachers' concerns and towards the government's responsiveness. That might play well publicly, but it risks seeming manipulative without redressing the real issues in the classrooms. For those of us in PR, it raises an ethical question. When does a message meant to reassure the public start to cross the line with influencing perception for political gain?
I know you're both going to ask me how's the public responding. So before I get your take, I'm going to let you know here's what's happening. First of all, there's an Angus Reid survey saying 58% of Albertans support the teachers, only 21% the government. That's not in particular, that's the strike overall. when I go on Reddit, for what that's worth, the comments on Reddit are not, oh my God, how dare they give us our own money to win our favor. The comments are $30 a day is not enough. So you can see the pressure that's coming. And just supplemental to that, there is a group called the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. It's a private group. It's privately funded, but it is in favor of spending taxpayers' money to cope with this. So now I turn to the two of you. What do you think?
Ooh, do you want to go first, or do you want me to jump in? And
You jump in.
yeah, I'll get the angry. I'll get the angry email from Canadians. Well, on both sides. Well, Laura, it was Laura, right? Is that
Lisa?
Lisa, sorry. Lisa raises. I think her real question was like, what are the ethics of this, and from a comms point of view, and trying to be balanced on this. I guess you could say, in some ways, the teachers are withholding a public service and taking value off the table, and there's communications to support what their needs are. The government, in theory, is putting money back on the table, whether it's enough or not, to basically defend their point of view. So I take her point, and I think it does raise, kind of a question mark over the ethics, but I'm not sure that this is really an ethical question in my mind. It's more of a effectiveness question, and it sounds like maybe from your results, Doug, that it's working a little bit, but it hasn't had the kind of effect maybe that the government thought. So, sorry, that's a hot take, and hopefully didn't piss anybody off.
Also, the government and the teachers, they're not starting at the same starting line, as it were, because actually, if you look at sort of the most trusted professions and the least trusted professions, you'd often get teachers in the top 10 most trusted, and you'd often get government and politicians in the least trusted professions. So I think that's also one aspect of framing the conversation, is they're starting at different levels of trust with the public.
Yep, well said.
Hey, Doug, I just you drew that from the mailbag from last week, and I'm really sorry you weren't there because we had some really great things. There was another submission, and I think it's queued. So, Emily or David, I think we just touch on this really quickly. It's from Catherine Arrow. It's a topic that I know you were interested in, about Sora 2, this text to video prompt. And I wonder if we could just hear her point of view, maybe very quickly respond, and then we'll get into the last piece.
Kia ora. Quick word on the Sora app, powered by Sora 2. It looks playful, quick prompt, and you're riding a dragon, dropping yourself or anyone into a realistic video, and then sharing it straight into your social feed. Fun? Yes, absolutely. But it's already spilling into real life. On my feed this week, I watched a fantastic dog rescuing a baby from an earthquake. Amazing. But then I realised I'd nearly missed the brief and tiny Sora watermark. That good boy wasn't real, and that's the problem. Anything about anyone all at once. And once that's shared, it walks reality. We've felt this in Aotearoa already, New Zealand's first prosecution for deepfake abuse, after a young girl was faked into porn sites by a boy that she rejected. And there'll be more. Synthetic video doesn't just damage reputations, it corrodes relationships and communities and young lives. That said, I've just been creating some unicorns for my AMEC and AI session and working on how we manage reality monitoring. Whose reality is being believed? How fast is it spreading? What harm the competing versions are doing? Even when we publish verifiable originals and insist on provenance and rehearse our synthetic crisis plan, the truth still lags far behind.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just grateful for all the submissions that we got. So please keep them coming. Literally from the other side of the world, we had Alberta, and then we went to New Zealand. Her points kind of don't need a response or rebuttal, but I thought it was well made. And in some ways, that's the best case scenario. So she's talking about Sora 2, voice to text video, and basically a social media platform that goes around it. Twitter, or what now X, has the same functionality, and it has Grok, and now it's making the same videos without nearly the same level of guidelines. So she's almost painting the best case scenario. I think there are worse cases to look at, but I thought it was a good point. And I know it was one that you were interested in.
I share her concerns. Absolutely. In some ways it's scary where we're going here, and we're going to doubt everything. We're not going to believe anything.
Yeah, but it's
It
like,
probably
what are we going to do about it? You can't put a harness on sort of the AI
Progress.
transformative content generators that's coming our way. So what do we do about it? So one area falls outside the PR realm is really the education piece, the media literacy piece. So is our education system fit for purpose? Are they thinking about how to equip the younger generation and the most vulnerable members of our society on how fast this is happening? Because I suspect, having looked at my daughter's sort of media literacy programs that they're getting in school, it's sort of like 1980s style, still focused on sort of framing and so forth. And I think that there's always been a lag between sort of education and sort of syllabus reviews and what's happening in the real world. But that lag is painfully sort of redundant because of what's taking place now. Just the pace of the AI content that's creating all sorts of issues for society.
What a time to be in the comms business.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think
Now,
our last
David, you're gonna, yeah.
Well, I just you are the incoming president for the Chartered Institute of PR. If people don't know, that's the professional society for PR and comms people. Its equivalent, I think, is the PRSA in the U.S., and there are other counterparts around the world. And you're the incoming
PRS, yes.
Yep.
IABC.
Farzana, incoming president, but you just had the contested election for your successor, and I just wanted to know what you thought about that. And I do have a hypothesis that I feel like, for actually some of the reasons you were just mentioning, I think people are really hungry for a sense of leadership, a sense of community, a sense of kind of shared direction in these times. And I just wonder if this is a moment for organizations like CIPR to have a little bit of a renaissance. Not that they suffered, but a renewed moment of relevance. I just wonder what your thought is on that.
Well, I think, first of all, congratulations to Dan Gallagher. Dan is not her. Dan is him. And Dan is our 2026 president-elect. And he has been a volunteer for the CIPR for a very, very long time. And I've watched him, great public service ethos. Now, the CIPR, I've been president-elect for almost a year now. What have I witnessed? I have witnessed a huge growth, actually, in their corporate affiliate membership. And what I'm sort of seeing that's driving underneath is the sense that actually for many decades, traditional PR actually didn't really move. It was, you just had to have a handful of broadcast journalists, a handful of print journalists. You take them out for long lunches, and you didn't have to sort of change the playbook of PR. But now, actually, in the last sort of 10 years, things have moved really quickly. You've had multiple channels, content creation. You've also, and so a lot of people need to join institutes like the CIPR, like the PRSA in the US, like the PRCA, also a very good sort of trade body that we have here, in order to equip themselves to learn. So there's that practical driver. There's also actually an ethical regulatory lens, because there's increasing legislation that's coming into the PR industry. So we've got the foreign influence registration scheme that's come in. They've got sort of like a sort of new stringent conditions in terms of the lobbying aspect and so forth. And so from a regulatory perspective, we also need to sort of understand how to sort of navigate. And then the third area, that is why a lot of people are sort of driving membership sort of forward, is because that sense of community people are looking at is quite overwhelming sometimes to see what is happening to the PR industry, how dynamic it is. It has great opportunity, but there's also great fear, especially with sort of AI coming in. And so they want to know from other people, well, how are you experiencing this, this new sort of onslaught of AI tools, and trying to sort of riff with each other to sort of figure a way forward. So you've got that combination of the educational requirements, the community connection that we need, and also the regulatory sort of aspects in order to be guided through. So yeah, I do think it's a bit of a renaissance for institutes like the CIPR.
I'm excited. I love CIPR. It's John Gurlis that introduced me to the CIPR about 5 years ago. Got to meet Jenny Field, I think, when she was president. Then there was another incoming president. This is about a year ago. And I found out she was incoming, and I approached her, and she became my podcast co-host. So I'm thrilled that Dan, as incoming president of CIPR, will be joining Stories and Strategies as the new co-host. I'm kidding. I wouldn't have printed the mug. You can't see it with the lighting. I wouldn't have printed the mug if that was true. So.
We got to start selling more merch. I didn't know we had merch.
Yeah, we are. We're out of time, you guys. We're out of time.
It's fast.
This has been awesome. Some good stuff. There was one comment. Can we sneak that in? I thought I saw one message come up from a viewer just before we skip to the last word. Nothing that
I
came
can
in.
see
Okay.
no.
Okay. I'm going to go to the last word. You like chrysanthemums? Is that pretty flowers? Chrysanthemums?
No,
You
they
don't
kind of, I don't,
go
they
with it,
signal death.
Farzana. Yes, and yes,
Yeah, okay then.
and yes,
Yeah,
and
yeah, they're
you
great.
know they save their brightest colors for the crisp air. That reminds us that patience has its own kind of beauty. Chrysanthemums really flourish in what you call autumn or fall. Not all flowers bloom in spring. Maybe your season is autumn. So just keep going. That's all the time we have today. Hope you enjoyed the discussion. Special thanks, as always, to our producers, Emily Page, David Olajidi. The Week Unspun is a co-production of Curzon Public Relations, Folgate Advisors, and Stories and Strategies. We'll see you next week. Have a chrysanthemum kind of weekend. Cheers.